Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to hold talks with leaders of Iran, Mozambique and Ethiopia on the final day of the Brics summit in South Africa. India erupts with excitement over its moon landing as world leaders congratulate Prime Minister Modi on the success of Chandrayaan-3 lunar mission. A G20 Trade and Commerce meeting starts in Jaipur. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal to chair it with Prime Minister Narendra Modi to deliver a video message. An Indian prodigy R. Pragnanda faces a tie break today against world number 1 chess player in the World Cup final. Brics leaders have unanimously expressed interest in expanding the bloc, although details on how it will work still need to be ironed out. More than 20 countries have made formal applications to be part of the group of the major developing economies. The bloc currently consists of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. The leaders meet today for the third and final day of the summit to discuss engagements with African leaders. Our correspondent Leon Senienge reports on this.
Countries like Argentina, Egypt, Saudi Arabia and even Iran have expressed interest in joining BRICS, and that could someday come to fruition as leaders from the 5 core BRICS countries expressed an openness to expanding the group during the second day of an ongoing summit in South Africa. There had previously been apprehension from India and Brazil to the idea, with speculation they feared diluting influence and the centralization of power around China. But on Wednesday, in his opening remarks at the event, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said he fully supports the expansion.
Your Excellencies, India fully supports the expansion of the BRICS group. In 2016, during India's presidency, we defined BRICS as a group building responsive, inclusive and collective solutions. 7 years later, we can say that BRICS will be breaking barriers, revitalizing economies, inspiring innovation, creating opportunities and shaping the future.
But while there is now consensus on major details like who will be admitted and when need to be hammered out, the summit wraps up on Thursday with the BRICS Africa Outreach and Plus Dialogue. The sessions will focus on working towards the realization of the African aspirations in development. China is expected to be heavily involved in in-depth discussions with invited African leaders on the ways to work together. Leon Senyange in Johannesburg reporting for DD India.
Our correspondent Amritpal Singh is joining us. Amrit, how do we see the partnership strengthening between the Global South even as the BRICS summit is underway in Johannesburg?
Well, over the past 3 days, leaders from the grouping have been talking about strengthening partnership. In fact, if you look at the intervention of the Prime Minister, where the 5 suggestions that he made for cooperation in the outer space, in skills development, in repository of traditional medicine knowledge systems that these countries have, or protection of wildcats, etc., was basically trying to put across the point that let us build on the advantages that we have, or our strengths that we have, and help each other become stronger and make our voice stronger. The big question of the expansion of the grouping was also discussed over the past 2 days, and as today the BRICS summit, the Johannesburg summit, concludes, one could expect in the Africa outreach and the BRICS Plus dialogue that cooperation between the African countries with the rest of the BRICS grouping increases. Therefore, therefore lending its weight or political weight to the narrative, the concerns, the aspirations of the developing part of the world. And India would surely want to use the gains of the 15th Brics Summit at Johannesburg and carry the Johannesburg Summit's gains to New Delhi, when it hosts the Leaders Summit of the G20 next month.
All right, Amrit, thank you for joining in with those inputs, with those updates. And people of Indian origin in Johannesburg greeted Prime Minister Narendra Modi after Chandrayaan 3 made a successful soft landing on Moon yesterday. On the successful landing of Chandrayaan 3, the President of United Nations General Assembly has congratulated India. Paulina Rubeck expressed the congratulations. Let's listen in.
It is something that we kind of shared this morning. The President congratulates India, obviously. It was within the OPGA office, many of the Indian colleagues were celebrating that achievement.
Indian Ambassador to the United Nations, Ruchira Kambodh, said that the successful soft landing of ISRO's moon mission, Chandrayaan 3, is a historic moment for humanity.
Let me quote the Prime Minister of India himself on this. India's successful moon mission is not India's alone. This is a year in which the world is witnessing India's G20 presidency. Our approach of one Earth, one family, one future is resonating across the globe. This human-centric approach that we represent has been welcomed universally. Our moon mission is also based on the same human-centric approach. Therefore, this success belongs to all of humanity, and it will help moon missions by other countries in the future. The Prime Minister went on to say that I am confident that all countries in the world, including those from the global south, are capable of achieving such feats. We can all aspire for the moon and beyond.
India's historic soft landing on the moon has been celebrated around the world, including in the US, which has aligned itself with India's space program. Washington has plans to ramp up its own lunar exploration efforts in the coming years. Ira Spitzer gets us the details.
India's moon landing has created significant excitement in the United States. Bill Nelson, the administrator of the National Aeronautics Space Agency, better known as NASA, posted a message of congratulations on the social media network X, praising India for being the fourth country to successfully soft land a spacecraft on the moon, and wrote that he was glad to be a partner on the mission. NASA provided access to its deep space network of radio antenna for communications with the Chandrayaan 3 spacecraft. The historic achievement is also significant for the U.S.'s own space ambitions. Washington sees itself in competition with China, which hopes to send astronauts to the moon by 2030. NASA had hoped to schedule its own first crewed moon landing in more than 5 decades for 2025, although it recently said the timeline for the Artemis 3 mission could slip into 2026. Unlike China, the U.S. views India as a partner. During Prime Minister Modi's visit to Washington earlier this year, the country signed up to the Artemis Accords, becoming the 27th signatory. Those countries have agreed to share scientific discoveries and create safety zones, allowing countries to do their own work on the lunar surface without disturbances. The State Department also congratulated India on X, writing that your success will power the imagination and light the future of people around the world. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan also praised what he called the historic landing and wrote that he looked forward to deepening our partnership with India on space exploration in the years ahead. Ira Spitzer reporting in San Francisco for DD India.
The United Kingdom has congratulated India for its lunar achievements. John Beaver looks now at the reaction of the successful mission from a country that has had recent setbacks in trying to get into space.
The UK and India have long had a close relationship that's only been getting closer in recent months, so perhaps no surprise that there was a lot of praise for India's successful moon mission. The UK Space Agency was quick to send their congratulations on X, what used to be called Twitter, saying that history had been made. The British High Commission in India called it a giant step forward for the whole world. In Dublin, the Indian cricket team were keeping a close eye on proceedings ahead of their match against Ireland. When it comes to space, the UK is second only to the United States in terms of the number of satellites it produces. The space sector here employs almost 50,000 people, with a speciality in smaller and nano satellites. But it's not yet successfully deployed them from UK soil, instead having to outsource the launching to other countries. The most recent attempt here in southwest England was a high-profile failure when a rocket launched in mid-air from a specially modified jumbo jet had a technical fault and failed to make it to orbit. Virgin Orbit, the company behind the attempt, folded 4 months after the failed mission. So experts in the UK are well aware of how difficult successful space missions are, and all have been quick to congratulate India on a job very well done. John Beaver in the UK, reporting for DD India.
Moscow has also congratulated India for successfully landing a spacecraft on the moon's south pole days after Russia's own mission crashed into the moon's surface. Russia stressed the importance of this breakthrough for the whole of humanity. Dasha Chernyshova is in Moscow with more on this.
Russia congratulates India on the successful landing on the moon's south pole. Russia's space agency Roscosmos says the exploration of the moon is important for the whole of humanity. In the future, it may become a platform for the deeper mastering of space. Russian President Vladimir Putin also congratulated Indian Prime Minister, saying that it is a major step in space exploration and the evidence of India's impressive progress in science and technology. On the sidelines of the Brics summit, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov also congratulated his Indian counterpart. Experts from Russia's Academy of Sciences say India made an important breakthrough that would keep the country among the most high-tech and industrial states of the world. But this landing took place just days after Russia's own mission, first to the moon in 47 years, Luna 25 crashed into the moon's surface. The craft was supposed to land on the moon's south pole too, but spun out of control after a problem preparing for pre-landing orbit. Russian scientists say most likely there will be no relaunch of the Luna 25, since the vehicles for the next missions are already prepared and it will take a while to change their programs. Dasha Chernyshova in Moscow, reporting for DD India.
World leaders at the Brics summit have congratulated India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the success of Chandrayaan-3's lunar mission. Heads of the state met Prime Minister Modi at a banquet dinner hosted by South African President and congratulated him for India's massive achievement. Congratulatory messages pouring in from across the world on the feat which was achieved yesterday. This has in fact strengthened India's space odyssey and has put India among the elite nations who have made a sojourn to the moon. But India becomes the first country in the world to land its mission on the south pole of the moon. President of India, Draupadi Murmu, has also congratulated ISRO and Indian citizens for the successful deployment of Vikram lander's Pragyan rover into the surface of the moon. In fact, expressing excitement of the success of another stage of Chandrayaan-3, President Murmu said that she is looking forward to the information and analysis that Pragyan will acquire and also enrich our understanding of the moon. And DD India correspondent Siddharth Bharadwaj joins us. Siddharth, good morning. We saw yesterday how India was at the center of the universe when it in fact successfully landed Chandrayaan-3 on the surface of the moon. We've seen how congratulatory messages have been pouring in. Indeed, it was a proud moment for all of us here. Let us spell out more. How does it further strengthen India's odyssey into the space? When we talk of the space realm, how strongly are we placed on the global page now?
Well, good morning, Preeti, and certainly I would like to say that sky is not the limit for India. We have made a remarkable achievement here. We are now on the moon, and we have become the fourth country after US, China, USSR to have landed at the lunar surface. And also, mind you, we are the first country ever to have landed on the moon's south pole, something which no one has ever did. This is a remarkable achievement, certainly, and I'll give you some technical explanation that why ISRO chose only south pole of the surface, of the moon, because on the south pole perhaps there is water, and where there is water there is existence. Where there is water there are possibilities of floras and faunas growing, and where there is water you can make rocket fuel. So it has opened the doors of possibilities, and that is the reason why ISRO has chosen south pole as a landing point. Prime Minister Narendra Modi also virtually joined yesterday to witness the historic celebration where the scientists inside the ISRO headquarters were jumping in joy. They were punching in the air, and why not? We have done something which no one has ever thought of doing. So we have become the first country to have landed on moon's south pole. He said that this is just the beginning, and there is a lot more to come. Now that we have landed on the moon, next up is Venus and the sun.
All right, when we talk of what next, then also we just read out the message of the president, wherein she talked of how we are now curious to see what is there on moon. All right, so that brings me to the next question. What next now that the rover has landed on the surface of the moon? What next do we expect?
Preeti, everything done and dusted. Now we have landed on the moon. Now the next objective, which is very important, is that what will the rover do? The Pragyan rover will now roam around on the surface of the moon and capture the images, and it will send those images back to the earth, where the scientists at ISRO will analyze that what is there on the surface of the moon. If there is water, then what is the quality of the water? And if there are minerals, what kind of minerals are there on the surface of the moon? Because that water and minerals are the basic needs of existence. So the scientists will find out what is actually there on the surface of the moon. They will also find out about the moon dust, which is known as regolith. So these are 2-3 of the objectives amongst the others which the scientists at ISRO will find out what is there on the surface of the moon, which is very crucial. It will certainly, like I said, would open the doors of possibilities, and also will help the scientists at ISRO to conduct experiments on the surface of the moon. So it's a golden opportunity for them, and it's certainly a proud moment for all of us, for the entire India. It's a testimony to the fact that how rapidly we are growing in science and technology. This is the era of social media. Everyone is there on social media. Everyone is applauding us. Everyone is praising India. Every Indian is proudly saying Jai Hind, Vande Mataram. Me also being an Indian would want to say Jai Hind and Vande Mataram for this remarkable achievement.
We'll end it here, and I'm sure this sentiment will be with us for many days to follow on from here, given the feat which India has achieved. Thank you for joining in. All right, up next we're heading for a short break, but very quickly we'll get you a quick sneak peek as to what awaits you on the other side of the break. Extreme temperatures in Europe are causing environmental headaches, with crevices opening on glaciers on the highest peaks of Mont Blanc in France. Pressure is mounting on Japan over its plan to release contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean. And Tropical Storm Franklin has made landfall in parts of Dominican Republic.
കളിയാടും നാടേ നിൻ തുഞ്ചത്ത് മുത്തോളം Kerala encapsulates the emotion of India with its vibrancy and diversity.
You're watching DD India News Hour and I'm Preeti. Let's get you more international updates. Europe's soaring temperatures are affecting the highest peaks of Mont Blanc in eastern France, causing the new crevasses to open up on its glaciers. Authorities are urging climbers to stay away from mountainous areas due to the threat of rockfall. Experts say the last few months of severe weather across the globe is due to human-driven climate change.
Yeah, for sure. I think that was...
In other updates, Wagner chief Yevgeny Prigozhin, who launched a failed coup against Russian President Vladimir Putin in June, was listed as a passenger on a private jet which crashed on Friday. Russian aviation authorities said no one survived the crash. Here's a report.
Russian authorities say mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin was listed as a passenger in a fatal plane crash, about 2 months after the mutiny he led that brought the country into a crisis. This unverified video from a Russian news outlet is said to show the moment of the crash. Reuters used satellite and street view images to confirm the clip's location, but could not immediately confirm that Prigozhin was physically on board the aircraft. According to Russian authorities, the crash happened Wednesday evening north of Moscow, leaving no survivors. 10 people were on board the plane heading from Moscow to St. Petersburg. 3 of them crew members. State media is reporting that 8 bodies were initially found at the crash site, with search and rescue operations underway. Data from online tracker FlightRadar24.com shows a plane heading northwest and then shortly after 6 p.m., suddenly disappearing. Prigozhin soared in prominence after Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year. The 62-year-old's fighters led the assault on the city of Bakhmut in the longest and bloodiest battle of the war. In June, he spearheaded a mutiny against Russia's top army brass. President Vladimir Putin said that move could have tipped the country into civil war. He was supposed to move to neighboring Belarus under an apparent deal to end the mutiny. U.S. President Joe Biden said he wasn't surprised to hear the news.
There's not much that happens in Russia with Putin not behind. I don't know enough to know the answer.
There was no immediate comment from Russia's defense ministry or the Kremlin.
And pressure mounts on Japan against its plan to release contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the ocean from 24th of August. Concerns remain high in Japan and abroad over its decision to discharge more than 1 million metric tons of radioactive water. Many people are worried over contamination of seafood and the ocean. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson strongly urged Japan to revoke its decision, while Hong Kong has set up a special team to monitor and review a ban on some seafood from Japan. The Japanese government approved the plan 2 years ago, which is crucial for decommissioning the plant, but local fishing groups slammed the decision, fearing damage of reputation to Japan's fishing industry. In South Korea, the opposition party and civic groups criticized Tokyo for allegedly threatening fishery products and jeopardizing the safety of Pacific countries. But documents from the Japanese government show that radioactive elements will be removed from the water, leaving only traces that are far below regulatory standards. DD India correspondent Chris Gilbert has more on this from Tokyo.
The Japanese government has been repeating over and over again that it wants to gain understanding of the science behind this project. And what that effectively means is it is very complicated. As someone said to me the other day, the words radioactive and wastewater and environment raise a lot of concerns. But from the IAEA, from TEPCO, and from the government, the message has consistently been it's a very thorough process that they've carried out. The levels of tritium, the isotope that remains in the water, are negligible to human health and negligible dangers to the environment. Tritiated water has been released by other countries such as South Korea, Canada, the UK, France, and China before. However, it's never been released for a 30 or 40 year period. That is the experimental element to this. The long-term effects of this release are unknown. The IAEA, the international watchdog, is going to keep a very close watch over this over the entire period of the release, but that is where these concerns are coming from. What is the long-term effects of this discharge?
All right, so from here we turn focus to the weather woes affecting the Western world. Tropical storm Franklin has made landfall in parts of Dominican Republic, with forecasters warning the storm could dump up to 10 inches of rain, with locals fearing it could trigger landslides and heavy flooding. Schools and government offices have also been closed as a precautionary measure. At least 5 people have been killed in wildfires in Peru. The Apurimac region of the country is the worst affected. At least 200 hectares of vegetation have been damaged by the fire so far. Fierce wildfires are also spreading in neighboring Bolivia. Over 500 army troops have been deployed to the regions affected by the fire. Wildfires are raging near the Greek capital of Athens. Officials say hundreds of fires have erupted, including one in Evros, which is close to the Turkish border. About 150 people were evacuated in Athens from 3 nursing homes near Dadia Forest in Greece. At least 18 burnt bodies have been discovered. Intense heat has sparked wildfires across Europe, and winds have fanned the flames in Greece. At least 20 people have already died. Around 1.3 million people are under a tropical storm warning in South Texas and also the Rio Grande Valley. According to the National Weather Service, tropical depression Harold brought 50 miles per hour gusts and torrential downpours that could dump 6 inches of rain in certain areas. Flooding is a concern, and strong winds could also cause property destruction. Still to come on DD India News Hour, Donald Trump is due to surrender to authorities in the U.S. state of Georgia on Thursday. Global central bankers and economists are gathering in Jackson Hole in Wyoming this week for the U.S. Federal Reserve's Economic Symposium. Tech shares led a rally on Wall Street on Wednesday, with the Nasdaq index closing in the green for a third straight day.
Welcome to Mahabalipuram, a coastal town full of delight, where history, art and natural beauty unite. Explore this sacred ground, where spirituality and divinity are closely bound. Stroll along the sandy shore, where sunsets leave you wanting for more. Wander through the Panchrathas, monuments of might, carved in stone, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Let the rock-cut caves transport you in time, where legends and myths intertwine. Immerse yourself in culture art, where music and dance captivate every heart. So visit Mahabalipuram. Let its magic unfold, where the ancient stories never grow old. Take in the richness of its hue. Let the spirit leave a lasting impression on you. Welcome to Mahabalipuram.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour, and I'm Preeti. And up next, we quickly take a relook at the top stories we are tracking this hour. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to hold talks with the leaders of Iran, Mozambique and Ethiopia on the final day of the Brics summit in South Africa. A G20 Trade and Commerce meeting starts in Jaipur. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal to chair it, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi set to deliver a video message. Indian prodigy R. Pragnanda faces a tie-break today against world #1 chess player in the FIDE World Cup final. And now we take a look at what the Indian newspapers are carrying today morning. And for this, Siddharth Bhardwaj joins us with the newspaper review.
Well, certainly, Preeti, the social media and the print media is all Chandrayaan 3, and why not? We have done something remarkable. We have done something. For that, we are being praised from all over the world right now. I'm having this newspaper in my hand. It's of the Asian Age, and the headlines there says India lights dark of the moon. India lights dark of the moon. This headline is there because we have landed on a surface of moon where it is speculated that it is permanently dark, and it's speculated that there is a possibility of water in the big craters and the possibility of frozen waters, and we are the first country certainly to have landed on the moon's south pole. So this headline reads, India lights the dark side of the moon. The dark side is now illuminated now that we are there, now that Chandrayaan is there. And let me just show you another newspaper here. It's the Indian Express, which I'm holding right now. And the headline says the moon is Indian, or should I rather say the south pole of the moon is Indian, because we have become the first country to have landed on the lunar surface south pole. And the image you can see here is of Chandrayaan 3. You can see the legs, the shadow of the legs, and also the image which is captured by the Chandrayaan 3 as soon as it was landed on the surface of the moon. So this is in the Indian Express, of which the headline says the moon is Indian, or rather the moon's south pole is Indian, because we have become the first country to have landed on lunar surface south pole, and fourth country in the world to have landed on lunar surface. Next up is the Hindu, which is here, and the headline reads, India lights up the dark side of the moon. Like I said, we have landed somewhere on the surface of the moon where it's speculated that it's dark, it's permanently dark, and the big craters out there are having frozen waters in them, which is very much beneficial because water is the basic need for existence. And if scientists find that the quality of water on the moon is appropriate, it is better, then there is very much possibility of life on the surface of the moon. And this rover, the Pragyan rover, will certainly send images of the surface of the moon back to the Earth, to the ISRO headquarters, wherein scientists will analyze that what is there on the surface of the moon, what is the water quality on the surface of the moon, and what are the essential minerals which are present on the surface of the moon, because if these two are there, then there is very much possibility of life, then there is very much possibility of floras and faunas growing there, and it has certainly opened doors of possibilities on the surface of the moon. So it's a remarkable achievement. This is the headline by the Hindu, which says India lights up the dark side of the moon. Next up I have the Times of India, and the headline is India goes where no nation's gone before. Like I was saying, we have become the first country in the entire world to have landed on the south pole of the moon. This is certainly remarkable, but this is just the beginning, Preeti. This is just the beginning. There is a lot more to come. We have just landed, and right now the next objective is to actually get what is there on the surface of the moon, what all is there. And it will also help, the images which the rover will send back to the ISRO scientists will also help in analyzing that is there life on moon, and if there is water, then what is the quality of the water. You can also make rocket fuel with the help of water as well. So basically, all in all, it's a great achievement by India. Everyone is praising us. Everyone is saying that it's a remarkable achievement, and this is just the beginning, and there is a lot more to come. And we have landed on the moon, and next up for us is Venus and the sun in the pipeline.
All right, Siddharth. So print media, electronic media, social media, all are abuzz with the feat which was achieved yesterday. Thank you for joining in with that newspaper review. And now also we get you other updates. A G20 Trade and Investment Ministerial meeting is beginning in Jaipur on Thursday. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal will chair the meeting. Also, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to deliver a video message. Deliberations will also focus on building the consensus on global trade and investment related issues under India's presidency. We take a look at other stories which are making it to the headlines now. A Kenyan national has been arrested with drugs at Delhi's Indira Gandhi International Airport. Officials say they seized more than 1.6 kilograms of cocaine from the passenger arriving from Nairobi. A high court in southern India has directed the state government of Tamil Nadu to provide reservation for its transgender community in the local body elections. The Madras High Court says it is time for Tamil Nadu to take steps to integrate the community into mainstream society and encourage democratic participation. In the northern Indian state of Himachal Pradesh, heavy monsoon rains are causing havoc, with at least 7 people dead and a number of national highways and other link roads blocked. The weather department says heavy rains are due to western disturbance and activation of the monsoon. Up next, we get more international updates. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is due to surrender to the authorities in the U.S. state of Georgia on Thursday. Trump has been charged with attempting to overturn the 2020 general election. He is one of the 19 co-defendants who have until Friday to turn themselves into Fulton County Court. Sally Patterson has more on this.
It's his 4th criminal case in less than 5 months. Former US President Donald Trump has found himself in courts across the country facing a plethora of charges, from Manhattan to Miami. And now he's due in Atlanta, Georgia, accused of attempting to illegally overturn the results of the 2020 presidential election. Taking to his social media platform Truth Social on Wednesday, Trump wrote, "Nobody has ever fought for election integrity like President Donald J. Trump. For doing so, I will proudly be arrested tomorrow afternoon." He's one of 19 co-defendants charged with a conspiracy to prevent Joe Biden from replacing him as president in 2020. Last week, a grand jury handed up a 41-count indictment, accusing those charged with engaging in a criminal enterprise and committing election fraud. The indictment says they pushed false claims that the election was stolen, harassed an election worker, and created fake electoral commission documents. Now, over the past few days, Trump's co-defendants have been booked at Fulton County Court, while others have made bail agreements with prosecutors. Trump himself has already negotiated a $200,000 bond and his release conditions. Now, these include only communicating with his co-defendants through lawyers and making no threats of any nature against the community, including on social media. Trump's been known to personally attack prosecutors in the cases he's facing. That includes Fannie T. Willis, the district attorney of Fulton County, who's leading this one. Trump denies any wrongdoing and has called the charges politically motivated. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
Global central bankers are gathering in Jackson Hole in Wyoming this week for the U.S. Federal Reserve's Economic Policy Symposium. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell will give one of the keynote speeches as representatives from around the world assess the health of their economies. Caroline Malone reports from Washington, D.C. on this.
The US is now thought likely to avoid recession, despite earlier dire predictions that growth would crash following the COVID-19 pandemic. The Federal Reserve has been increasing interest rates in the US since March 2022, which has pushed inflation down to 3% from its highs of 9%. Retail sales and home building numbers are strong and unemployment is at a 50-year low. But the labour market is tight, with the second smallest monthly job gain seen in July since December. That's something Fed Chair Jerome Powell is likely to address at Jackson Hole on Friday.
He will address some of the structural longer-term issues that we're facing as a country. These are the same issues that we've been talking about pre-COVID, in terms of we have a lack of demographics, if you will. We don't have enough people to do the job that is required, and we also have a productivity at a standstill.
Parts of Europe, including Germany and the UK, still have high inflation to contend with. That's not the case in Russia, though, where their currency, the ruble, is diving and now at a 16-month low. There's pressure on the economy in the wake of their invasion of Ukraine as military spending grows and imports increase faster than exports.
But now, a full year and a half later, oil prices are structurally lower, and sanctions are having this effect of having Russian oil exports traded at a discount. And so the balance of trade dynamics have really shifted, putting downward pressure on the Russian ruble. And now we're seeing that central bank kind of step in to support the currency.
China is enduring a recent economic slowdown, with their National Bureau of Statistics warning youth unemployment is over 20% and can't be ignored. There are also concerns of a real estate crisis, with Evergrande, formerly one of the nation's biggest developers, filing for bankruptcy. There's a slump in domestic and foreign investment in China this year, with a drop in demand for its exports because of a worldwide economic slump. Central bankers gathering in the United States this week will focus on structural shifts in the global economy, with resilience but also uncertainty likely to feature in their economic visions. Caroline Malone in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Tech shares led a rally on Wall Street, with the Nasdaq index closing in the green for the third straight day. Nvidia shares surged after hours. The chipmaker reported record sales. Ira Spitzer reports on this.
NVIDIA's second quarter revenue came in at $13.5 billion, more than double what it was a year ago. Alongside projections that AI would continue to drive growth, that helped propel the chipmaker's shares to new heights after market close. That followed a strong day on Wall Street, where 10 out of 11 sectors closed the session higher as traders were relieved to see bond yields pull back from some recent highs. The Dow was up 0.5%, the S&P 500 rose 1.1%, and the Nasdaq led the way, up 1.6%. That tech-heavy index is now up 31% this year, fueled by excitement about the artificial intelligence boom. Earnings reports drove some major gains and losses for individual firms. Shoe retailer Foot Locker fell 28%, clothing retailer Abercrombie & Fitch rose 24%, and shares of the exercise bike maker Peloton dropped 23% to hit a new record low. Ira Spitzer reporting in San Francisco for DD India.
All right, up next we take a look at other stories making news around the world. Dozens of people have been arrested in Argentina for alleged looting. Business owners in crime-affected areas say that they're hesitant to reopen their shops over a new wave of vandalism. Argentina's economy minister, Sergio Massa, says that victims of looting could be given up to $19,000 in aid. Norway has unveiled the world's largest floating offshore wind farm. It will generate 88 megawatt of energy to supply nearby oil and gas platforms. The 11-turbine field is located around 90 miles offshore in the North Sea. Environmentalists say that the move is positive as it brings down the country's CO2 emissions. Zimbabwe has extended voting until Thursday after a late distribution of ballot papers delayed polling in certain areas. A presidential notice issued on Wednesday said that 40 wards were affected by the delays. The current president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is seeking a second and final term in office. He became the president in 2018 after a coup ousted former leader Robert Mugabe in 2017. Republican U.S. presidential candidates take part in the first debate of 2024 campaign. For more on this, we're joined in by Caroline Malone from Washington, D.C. Caroline, good morning. When we talk of the Republican U.S. presidential candidates taking part in the debate, then the Republican candidate Donald Trump has already refused to participate in this debate. Spell out more details. What all issues do we expect to be taken up, and spell out more details on the candidates as well?
Absolutely. So it was a remarkable debate, a 2-hour-long debate, in particular because, as you mentioned there, Donald Trump, who is the front runner for the Republican Party, did not take part in the debate. He wasn't on the stage. He'd said in recent days he didn't feel that he needed to be there because he's doing so well in the polls. Now, what it meant for the other 8 candidates who were on the stage for the debate is that they were able to talk about some of the main issues that are facing people in the United States and voters. The top of that list is the economy and the cost of living, which is affecting many people. Many of the candidates on the stage speaking out against the current President Biden's policies called Bidenomics when it comes to the economics of the country. Ron DeSantis, who is the Florida governor, he's the second in line in the polls after Trump. He talked about the need to reverse spending, to find solutions such as boosting oil and gas for energy reserves. Then the third in line in the polls, Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a relative newcomer to politics, he was challenged about his lack of experience, and he said he's glad that he's not a career politician, he's a successful entrepreneur, and that he's lived the American dream, and he got a lot of cheers from the audience for that comment in particular. Now, Nikki Haley was also on the stage. She is the former US ambassador to the United Nations. She said it's important the candidates are honest, that during the Trump administration, they actually added debt to the economy. She got cheers for that comment as well. Pence, who's the former vice president under Trump, he was also on the stage, also a front runner in this debate, speaking about how at the time they had to boost spending for the military and that led to some of the increased spending, but that he sees himself as the most tested and proven candidate and there's no time for on-the-job training. Now, climate change was also something that they spoke about. They spoke out against Biden again for his, they perceive it as a lack of quick reaction to what happened in Hawaii recently with the wildfires. They spoke of the need to make sure that China doesn't take away jobs from the country, particularly when it comes to the production of e-vehicles. Vivek Ramaswamy also made a potentially controversial comment saying that climate change was a hoax, and that really led to silence from the audience, not really sure how to react to that. Abortion also featured high on the debate, as did Ukraine, and all the candidates were asked if they would continue funding the military campaign in Ukraine against Russia, and they all said they would, except for Ramaswamy, who said it's time to stop funding and to secure the US's own borders. And it wasn't until 50 minutes into the debate that actually Trump himself was brought up directly by the moderators, and the candidates were asked directly about Trump.
All right, Caroline, that was a sum up of the debate, but let us get an overall, analysis from you. With Donald Trump facing lawsuits, how far will it have a bearing on the political contest there in the U.S.?
Absolutely. Well, what was very interesting about the questions that were put to the candidates tonight on Trump, they were asked if Trump is found guilty in any of the court cases he is currently facing, any of the criminal charges he's found guilty, would they still support him from the Republican candidate? And most of the people on the stage said they would. Now, Trump is facing 4 major cases. The most recent is the Georgia indictments. He is due to appear before a court, we believe, on Thursday, so later on Thursday. And he may be let out, according to agreements, on a $200,000 bail. But he is facing charges of trying to overturn the last election results in 2020. So some huge charges being leveled against him there. There's some similar federal charges being put against him from the Justice Department. And then we have 2 other major court cases, one relating to classified documents and his withholding of them, and also related to hush money in New York. So he is facing a number of legal battles right now. And it is remarkable that even despite all these court cases, he is still the front runner and far ahead as the front runner in the Republican Party to be the next candidate for president.
All right, Caroline, thanks for joining in with those updates and analysis. That was Caroline Malone joining us, spelling out more details as to what do we expect the political contest in the US to shape up from here on. Let's get to an interesting report ahead, from an ABBA legend teaming up with artificial intelligence to a tech startup that wants to get into the boxing ring. Now, these are the week's big stories from the AI revolution. Take a look.
From software that really sings to why chatbots are throwing some punches, this is Generation AI. YouTube is launching an incubator to help explore the use of AI in music. The Alphabet unit says the group will help gather insights on generative AI experiments at YouTube. The firm has signed up mega label Universal Music as a partner and is set to work with artists including ABBA member Bjorn Ulvaeus. Facebook parent Meta has released an AI model that can translate between dozens of languages. Boss Mark Zuckerberg hopes that will help drive his vision of a global metaverse where people everywhere can interact without linguistic divides. Baidu is waiting for a green light from Beijing. The Chinese tech giant beat earnings forecasts over the latest quarter and says it's integrating its Ernie chatbot into numerous products. But it needs regulators to okay a wider rollout to the public, and that hasn't come yet. AI could be entering the boxing ring. Startup Jabber has developed a system that can observe fights and measure 50 different parameters in real time. Boss Alan Swystrup.
And what it's going to give you is an automated count of strikes thrown, what's landed, the impact quality of the shots. But it's also going to do a lot of other cool things like generate automated highlights for you.
The system has already been put through its paces at a London boxing club. And AI-generated art cannot be copyrighted. That's according to a US court, at least. The ruling says only humans can get the legal protection, to the disappointment of artistic chatbots everywhere.
And from here, we now turn focus to sports on DD India News Hour. In the final of the Fight World Cup, Indian Grandmaster R. Pragyananda drew the second game against world number 1 Magnus Carlsen on Wednesday. The two players settled for a quiet draw in 30 moves after 1.5 hours of play in Game 2. Game 1 on Tuesday also ended in a draw after 35 moves, but it lasted much longer as Carlsen tried to chase a win with black pieces. The champion will be decided in the tie breaks today. Jasmine Aldrin became the first Indian to reach the final of this year's World Athletics Championship. The 21-year-old made it to the final of the men's long jump event with a best effort of 8 meters, which was way off his personal best. Jasmine Aldrin, who had the world-leading jump of the season with 8.42 meters, finished 12th in the qualification. Murali Srishankar, who had been in good form in 2023, missed the cut after failing to cross the 8-meter barrier. Also in the women's 3,000 meter steeplechase, India's Parul Chaudhary came up with a sensational performance in Budapest on Wednesday to qualify for the final. The 28-year-old achieved a new personal best of 9 minutes 24.29 seconds in Heat 2 to finish 5th and also book a spot in the final. Parul broke her personal best of 9 minutes 29.51 seconds, which she had managed during a podium finish at the Los Angeles Grand Prix in May. The final of the women's 3,000 meters steeplechase will be held on Sunday, the final day of the world meet in Budapest. All right, let's get to a quick update on the Pragyan rover now. India's Chandrayaan-3 Pragyan rover has exited the spacecraft and has begun its exploration of the lunar surface. Taking to platform X, formerly known as Twitter, the Indian Space Research Organization, or ISRO, on Thursday informed that Chandrayaan-3 rover ramped down from the lander and India took a walk on the moon. With this, we end this edition of News Hour. But before we go, we leave you with mesmerizing glimpses of Fontana Water Circus that kicked off performances in Amman. That's it in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, and also Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti signing off, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.